Welcome, class. Today in art history, we are going to be starting a new lesson. We are going to jump into learning about Pablo Picasso. Your objectives for this lesson will be to identify artwork done by Picasso. You will create a piece of artwork that illustrates Picasso's aesthetics, and you will be required to write a reflection on how you believe your artwork resembles that of Picasso. So our pre-assessment activity for today's lesson is glancing over some of these images that you see, and I want you to think to yourself which ones, just from your knowledge as of this point, reflect Pablo Picasso's artwork, or which ones are Pablo Picasso's. We see the Starry Night. We have the Mona Lisa. We have another work down here who's actually by Salvador Dali. So the two that are Pablo Picasso's, we have this one and we have this one down here. And we are going to learn about these two periods of these artworks as we go on. So Picasso's early work, he actually started painting when he was 8 years old. So this image that we have up here, Picador, 1889. He created oil on canvas at the age of 8. And as a young artist, his father actually recognized his abilities, and he was the one that kind of helped him get into school. And Pablo went to Barcelona Academy of Art, La Concha, and he didn't last all that long there. He actually went to another university and went to San Fernando Academy in Madrid, but he never actually graduated from any schooling. So a few of his periods that we are going to go over today start fairly early in his career. This one is the early 1900s. This is the blue period. So the blue period, we learn, is fairly recognizable. It starts to take place in the early 1900s. Its inspiration is said to be from a very close friend who had passed away in Pablo Picasso's life. And we start to see in his blue period, we have these colors that are very dark and just kind of heavy. And we start to see more exaggerations of angles in the faces and elongated limbs. And we also start to see a lack of perspective from Picasso in his artwork. So we saw in his early stuff that, he was a good realistic painter. He was capable of doing realism, but we start to see his artwork being a little more construed and exaggerated. One of his next periods was Cubism. So from here, we're going to fast forward a little bit. We do pass over the Rose period and the African period. We're going to check out Cubism, and here we start to see the most simplified forms that represent outlines of objects and figures. In Cubism, this period lasted for Pablo from about 1906 to 1912. And let's check out these images that we have here in front of us and kind of see, early 1900s to the 1920s. Let's see how much his detail has changed as we move across time. Here we see the pot, wine glass, and book, 1908. So we have that lack of perspective. We're showing a little bit of shadow in his work and a little reflection in the glass. We go to violin, and you can see little bits and pieces here where the violin has been construed and layered on top of itself. But we still understand that violin is still sitting in there. And we have the three musicians over here. So we really start to see the lack of realism here in this one. But you still have an idea of where the faces are. So we have one here, we have one over here, and then we have our third guy over here. And, you know, the more you look at it, you see a guitar, you see what looks to be music notes, and this guy is playing maybe like clarinet type of instrument. So one of the more common periods that Picasso is known for also is Surrealism. Now, Surrealism took place in the 30s, and his period of Surrealism was inspired by a muse, and this muse, her name was Marie-Therese Walter, and a closeness of a friend of his named Andre Breton, excuse me. And Andre was actually known as the founder of Surrealism, but he worked in French writing and poetry. But due to the closeness in friends, that's when Pablo Picasso started to articulate these transcripts and creating them visually for us to see. So we have the Bather over here, 1928. We see Figures on a Beach, 1931. And then we have The Dream over here in 1932. So again, let's kind of think about the images we just saw, and which color palette does not represent typical colors used by Picasso. Oops, sorry. Let's go back here. We have these bright, vivid ones, these duller ones, some earth tones, and then we have those blues and grays. Obviously, I would hope that you would say these bright, colorful ones. We don't see a whole lot of, kind of the pastel color palette in his work. So that's something to think about as you prepare to get an idea of what you want to draw. What kind of colors do you want to incorporate in your painting? So what I'll have you guys do is watch a couple of videos that I have here. Now this one's kind of lengthy, but it really gives a great idea of who Picasso was and how he uses the brush and how he creates these forms so fluently. And you also get a little bit of history lesson on it as well, especially in this video. So please take notes and sketch alongside the video as you're watching. What kind of styles are you seeing? What colors do you see? What inspires you? What do you want to create as we move forward? And after you guys have watched the videos, we will be discussing with your neighbor this artwork right here. And what colors do you see? What shapes are present? How does he scale the objects in the canvas? What patterns do you see? What facial expressions are we seeing? And try to get an overall idea of what your study is going to be. And after all of that, we are going to start sketching. So as always, sketch paper is located on the art table. You can use one of the three medias, pencil, marker, or acrylic for your study. You will use your study to create your final piece. So it doesn't have to be perfect. This is just to get an idea of what your complete goals are going to be. And remember to reflect on his technique. Look at your notes, any sketches that you did. And I think we're going to end it right there. So this is one of my favorite quotes from Pablo, and I just thought I'd throw it up here for you guys. Everything you can imagine is real. So you can take this as realistic or as surrealistic as you would like to in your class. All right, guys, let me know if you have any questions, and let's get started.